Hello, Mark. My name is Joy Li Chengxuan, and my student number is S0441015, and I'm a sophomore. I'm going to read a speech titled, What It's Like to Be a Parent in a War Zone, and the speaker is Aala Khani. Worldwide, over 1.5 billion people experience armed conflict. In response, people are forced to flee their country, leaving over 15 million refugees. Children, without a doubt, are the most innocent and vulnerable victims, but not just from the obvious physical danger, but from the often unspoken effect their war has on their family. The experience of war leaves children at a real high risk for the development of emotional and behavioral problems. Children, as we can only imagine, will feel worried, threatened, and risk. But there is a good news. The quality of care that children receive in their family can have a more significant effect on their well-being than from the actual experience of war that they have been exposed to. So actually, children can be protected by warm, secure parenting during and after conflict. In 2011, I was a first-year PhD student in the University of Manchester School of Psychological Science. Like many of you here, I watched the crisis in Syria unfold in front of me on the TV. My family is originally from Syria, and very early on, I lost several family members in really horrifying way. I sit and I gather with my family and watch the TV. We all sing those scenes, burn, destroy buildings, chaos, destruction, and people screaming and running. It was always the people screaming and running that really got me the most, especially those terrified-looking children. I was a mother to young, typically inquisitive children. There were 5 and 6 then, and an age where they typically ask us and lots of questions, and expected real, convincing answer. So I began to wonder what it might be like to be a parent, my children in a war zone and a refugee camp. Would my children change? Would my daughter's bright, happy eyes lose their shine? Would my son's really relaxed and carefree nature become fearful and withdrawn? How would I cope? Would I change? And as psychologists and parent trainer, we know that arming parents with skill in caring for their children can have a huge effect on their well-being, and we can call this parent training. The question I had was, could parent training programs be useful for families while they were still in war zone or refugee camp? Could we reach them with advice or training that would help them through these struggles? So I approached my PhD supervisor, Professor Rachel Cullen, with the idea of using my academic skill to make some change in the real world. I wasn't quite sure what exactly I wanted to do. She listened carefully and patiently, and then to my joy, and she said, if that's what you want to do, and it means so much to you, then let's do it. Let's find a way to see if parent program can be useful for family in this context. So for the past 5 years, myself and my colleague, Professor Cullen and Dr. King Cartwright, have been working on ways to support families that had experienced war and displacement. Now to know how to help families that have been through conflict support their children. The first step must obviously be to ask them what they are struggling with, right? I mean, it seems obvious, but it's often those that are the most vulnerable that we are trying to support, that we actually don't ask. How many times have we just assumed we know exactly the right thing that's going to help someone or something without actually asking them first? So I traveled to refugee camps in Syria and in Turkey, and I sat with families, and I listened. I listened to their parenting challenges. I listened to their parenting struggle, and I listened to their call for help. And sometimes there was just pause, as all I could do was hold hands with them and just join them in silent crying and prayer. They tell me about their struggle. They tell me about the rough, harsh refugee camp conditions that made it hard to focus on anything but practical chores, like collecting clean water. They tell me how they watched their children withdraw, the sadness, depression, anger, bedwetting, thumb sucking, fear of loud noise, fear of nightmare, terrifying, terrifying nightmares. This family had been through what we have been watching on the TV. The mothers, almost half of them, were now widows of war, or didn't even know if their husbands were dead or alive. Described how they feel they were coping so badly. They watch their children change and they have no idea how to help them. They didn't know how to answer their children's questions. What I found incredibly astonishing and so motivational was that its families were so motivated to support their children. Despite all these challenges they faced, they were trying to help their children. They were making attempts and seeking support from NGO workers, from refugee camp teachers, professional medics, other parents. One mother I met had only been in a camp for 4 days, 4 days, and already have have already made 2 attempts and seeking support for her 9-year-old daughter who was having terrifying nightmares. But sadly, these attempts are almost always useless. Refugee camp doctors, while available, are almost always too busy or don't have the knowledge or the time for basic parenting support. Refugee camp teachers and other parents are just like that, part of a new refugee community who's struggling with new needs. So then we began to think, how could we help this family? The family was struggling with things much bigger than they could cope with. The Syrian crisis made it clear how incredibly impossible it would be to reach families on an individual level. How else could we help them? How would, how would we reach family at a population level and low cost in these terrifying times? After hours of speaking to NGO workers, one suggested a fantastic innovative idea of distributing parenting information leaflet via bread wrapper. Bread wrapper that were being delivered to families in a conflict zone in Syria by humanitarian workers. So that's what we did. A bread wrappers haven't changed at all in their appearance, except for the addition of 2 pieces of paper. One was a parenting information leaflet that had basic advice and information that normalized to parents what they might be experiencing and what their children might be experiencing, and information on how they could support themselves and their children, such as information like spending time talking to your child, showing them more affection, being more patient with your child, talking to your children. The other piece of paper was a feedback questionnaire, and of course, there was a pen, so is this simply leaflet distribution, or is this actually a possible means of delivering psychological first aid that provides warm, secure, loving parenting? We managed to distribute 2,000 of these in just 1 week. What was incredible was we had a 60% response rate, 60% of the 3,000 families respond. I don't know how many researchers we have here today, but that kind of response rate is fantastic. To have that in Manchester would be a huge achievement. That alone in a conflict zone in Syria, really highlighting how important this kind of messaging were to family. I remember how excited and eager we were for the return of the questionnaire. The family have left hundreds of messages, most incredibly positive and encouraging. But my favorite has got to be, thank you for not forgetting about us and our children. This really illustrates the potential means of the delivery of psychological first aid to families, and the return of feedback too. Just imagine replicating this using other means such as baby meal distribution or female hygiene need, or even food basket. But let's bring this closer to home, because the refugee crisis is one that having an effect on every single one of us. We are bombarded with images daily of statistics and of photos, and that's not surprising because by this month, over 1 million refugees have reached Europe. 1 million refugees are joining our community. They are becoming our neighbor. Their children are attending our children's school. So we adapted the lively to meet the needs of European refugees, and we have then online open access. In areas with a really high refugee influx, for example, the Swedish healthcare uploaded it onto their website, and within the first 45 minutes, it was downloaded 343 times, really highlighting how important it is for volunteer, practitioners, and other parents to have open access psychological first aid messages. In 2013, I was sitting on the cold, hard floor of a refugee camp tent with mothers sitting around me as I was conducting a focus group. Across from me stood an elderly lady with what seemed to be a 13-year-old girl lying beside her, with her head on the elderly lady's knee. The girl stayed quiet throughout the focus group, not talking at all, with her knee curled up against her chest. Toward the end of the focus group, and as I was thanking the mother for their time, an elderly lady looked at me while pointing at the young girl, and said to me, Can you help me with? Not quite sure what she expected me to do. I looked at the young girl and smiled, and in Arabic I said, Salam alaikum. Should Ismail, what's your name? She looked at me really confused and unengaged, but then said, Halu. Halu is the pet name for the Arabic female name, Hala, and it's only really used to refer to really young girls. At that point, I realized that actually Hala was probably much older than 13. It turns out Hala was a 25-year-old mother to 3 young children. Hala had been a confident, bright, bubbly, loving, caring mother to her children, but the war had changed all of that. She lived through bombs being dropped in her town. She lived through explosions. When fighter jets were flying around their building, dropping bombs, her children would be screaming, terrified from the noise. Hala was frantically grab pillow and cover her children's ears to block out the noise, all the while screaming herself. When they reached the refugee camp and she knew they were finally in some kind of safety, she completely withdrew to acting like her old childhood self. She completely rejected her family, her children, her husband. Hella simply could no longer cope. This is a parenting struggle with a really tough ending, but sadly, it's not uncommon. Those who experience armed conflict and displacement will face serious emotional struggle, and that's something we can all relate to. If you have been through a devastating time in your life, if you have lost someone or something you really care about, how would you continue to cope? Would you still be able to care for yourself and for your family, given that the first years of a child's life are crucial for healthy physical and emotional development, and that 1.5 billion people are experiencing armed conflict, many of whom are now joining our community. We cannot afford to turn a blind eye to the needs of those who are experiencing war and displacement. We must pri- pri- prioritize these family needs, both those who are internally displaced and those who are refugees worldwide. This need must be prioritized by NGO workers, policymakers at the WHO, and the UNHCR, and every single one of us in whatever capacity it is that we function in our society. When we begin to recognize the individual face of the conflict, when we begin to notice those intricate emotions on their face, when we begin to see them as human too, when we begin to see the need of this family, and these are the real human needs. When these family needs are prioritize intervention for children in humanitarian setting will prioritize and recognize the primary role of the family in supporting children. Family mental health will be shouting out and care in global international agenda, and children will be less likely to enter social service system in resettlement country because their family would have had support early on, and we will be more open-minded, more welcoming, more caring, and more trusting to those who are joining our community. We need to stop war. We need to build a world where children can dream of plane dropping gifts and not bomb. Until we start on conflict raging throughout the world, family will continue to be displaced, leaving children vulnerable. But by improving parenting and caregiver support, it may be possible to weaken the link between war and psychological difficulty in children and their family. Thank you. Applause.